Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the most interesting mini PCs that we've seen in a very long time. Now, as we know, I do a lot of mini PC reviews, but this one here has something very special that we haven't seen in a mini PC form factor. This is actually the very first mini PC powered by an AMD Ryzen Z1 APU. Now, we've seen this chip in handhelds before, but we haven't seen it in a mini PC, basically haven't seen it anywhere else but handhelds. And this is a really early unit. The full design isn't finalized yet. There are talks of a little bit of RGB, given what kind of chip we have here. I mean, this could definitely be a really good little gaming mini PC. And in this video, we're going to be running some benchmarks, testing out some AAA games. But before we get into it, I do want to mention that this video is brought to you by Urcdkeys. I've actually been using this site for a couple years now. They do offer Steam keys, Origin, Uplay. They even offer Microsoft applications like Office, but the main reason that I use Urcdkeys is for their Windows keys. Right now, their Windows 10 Pro OEM key is $19.84, but if you use code ETA at checkout, you can get 25% off. And another great thing about buying from here is they do accept PayPal. I just did this build here. I need to activate Windows. I'm going to head over to my updates and security. We're going to go to activation. As you can see, I've got Windows 10 Pro, but it's not activated. So I'm going to change product key. I'm going to paste it in here, choose next, choose activate, and Windows is now activated. We're ready to go. My warning is totally gone, and basically that's it. They'll email your code once your payment is processed, and that's basically it. If you're interested in picking up cheap Windows 10 keys for your new PC builds, I'll leave a link in the description. And sometimes when these companies do send me over products, they say, it's a prototype, but this is looking really finalized except for this top plate here, and that's where the RGB would go. Now, just taking a look at the overall design, definitely looks like a plain Jane box-style mini PC. And with this, they did send over a 120 watt power supply. It is a 19 volt power supply. I was kind of hoping that these would run on 12 volts. But we'll have plenty of power here for that AMD Ryzen Z1 APU. I've had a few days to spend with this. It's a pretty powerful little machine, but there is some tweaking and tuning they need to do in the BIOS in order to get this up to full potential. Out of the box, it was only running at 28 watts, but luckily, at least with this version, we did have an unlocked BIOS, so I was able to take it up basically as high as we can with the cooling system implemented here. And when it comes to I/O on this earlier unit, up front here, we do have one 3.5mm audio jack, two full-size USB 3.2 ports, and USB 4. This USB 4 port does run at a 40 gig protocol, so you can connect an eGPU if you wanted to. And moving around back, two full-size HDMI ports, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, and oddly enough, two USB 2.0 ports. I figured we'd have at least one more 3.0 back here. Might change in the future, but I mean, this does work for keyboards and stuff like that just fine. This was sent over to me by what I can tell is a newer mini PC company coming to market. There are talks about this going to Indiegogo. I actually told them it might not be a good plan. If they can produce them, I'm pretty sure people would buy them, especially given what we've got here, and if the price is right. Now, that's going to be the main thing. And they also stated that there will be two variants of this mini PC. So the one I have here is the earlier unit. It's an AMD Ryzen Z1 non-Extreme, but they have the Extreme in the works. This CPU, or APU rather, is still based on Zen 4, and we've got RDNA 3 graphics. With the non-Extreme, we get 6 cores, 12 threads, a base clock of 3.2 GHz, and a boost up to 4.9. An RDNA 3 based iGPU with 4 compute units. Now, if you remember correctly, the Extreme actually has 12 compute units, so this isn't going to come in as powerful, but it does run it up to 2800 MHz. This utilizes SODIMM DDR5 RAM running in dual channel. You can go up to 64 gigabytes, and the fastest I can get this to go from the BIOS is 5600 megahertz. There is an option to go higher, but it just doesn't stick in the BIOS. So I was really hoping I could run the stuff I have right now at around 6000, but 5600 is what we're working with here. It's got one PCIe 4.0 M.2 SSD slot. We've also got Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, and I'm actually going to be running Windows 11 Pro on this unit. Okay, so here it is. I've spent a little time with this mini PC, and it's actually really quick. As you can see, we've got that Ryzen Z1. It's the non-Extreme version, 6 cores, 12 threads. And like I mentioned, the manufacturer stated that they are working on a Z1 Extreme variant, but it's easier for them to get these Z1 chips. And I really think what happened here, where there were some handheld manufacturers who planned on doing two versions, let's say the Z1 Extreme and the non-Extreme Z1. The non-Extreme Z1 isn't going to sell as well, so I think they can offload some of these chips over to these mini PC manufacturers, and I think that's what's happening. Now, don't quote me on that, but I got a good feeling that's what's going on here. We do have the RDNA 3 graphics. They're not going to be as fast as the 780M because we've only got 4 compute units as opposed to 12. But for what we have here, power consumption, and hopefully price in the end, this is actually a really decent performer. Now with this, we do have much slower RAM than we would in a handheld, given that we do have to use SODIMM. I'm up to 5600, and from the BIOS, I just can't overclock any. So I've got 16 gigs at 5600 megahertz. And I wanted to show you the TDP here real quick. So if I run a stress test, right here with core temp, you'll see it jump up to 35 watts. I've actually got this set up at 68. So let me hit stop here. I've been using Universal x86 tuning utility. And with this, from custom, we can actually set up a custom profile. So our power here is at 68. Even if I apply this, I'm not getting that kind of wattage here. But at 35 to 40 watts, this is actually sending quite a bit of power to the CPU and GPU at the same time, enabling it to keep those higher clocks. So we're stressing out the CPU right now, 35 watts. Let me move this out of the way real quick so we can still see it. We're also going to put a load on the iGPU. And you can see that dipped down a bit because it's sending some over to the iGPU. But we are at that maximum clock of 2800 megahertz. We've only got 4 CUs to power here. So at 35 to 40, we're actually getting some really decent performance out of this little chip. Now, hopefully in the future, I can take this up to 54 because it is rated as a 54 watt chip. But even from the BIOS or any kind of third-party TDP adjustment software just really isn't working right now. Next thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks that I ran. And first up, we've got Geekbench 6 coming in with a very respectable single core of 2,467, multi 9,328. Now for a 6-core, 12-thread CPU, not bad at all. Let's go ahead and move over to some GPU benchmarks. I ran a bunch of tests through 3D Mark, and unfortunately with Night Raid, I could not get it to finish. I tried it about 4 times, just kept crashing on me. Not sure if it's a driver issue or whatnot, but I was able to finish up Firestrike, coming in with a 4,564, and I also ran Time Spy with 1,789. Now these scores are definitely lower than the Extreme variant. With Time Spy here, we're up into the 3,000s at a higher wattage with the Z1 Extreme. But these are synthetic benchmarks, so let's see how this thing handles real-world gaming. Spider-Man Remastered did way better than I thought it would, but we did have to drop that resolution down to 720p. At 1080, we can actually get an average of around 45 FPS, but in order to get a pretty steady 60 every once in a while, falling down into the mid-50s, you will have to drop the resolution down to 720p and the settings to low. Forza Horizon 5 fared much better because with this, we're at 1080p low settings and we got an average of 79 FPS. I'll tell you, this will run at 1080p medium settings, but you will have to turn FSR to balance. You could lock it at 60 and play this game all day on the Z1 CPU in this mini PC. I'm really impressed with the performance here. Now, given this is a very well optimized game, and on a lot of APUs, we get some pretty decent performance. But up next, I tested out Street Fighter 6. We're at 1080p medium settings, running at 60. Every once in a while, I did see the FPS fluctuate down to 58, but that's about as low as I saw it through a couple of matches. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely running it at full speed. I also went through and tested Mortal Kombat 1, and even at the lowest settings, with FSR set to performance, we only got an average of around 53 FPS, kinda on par with the Steam Deck's performance. I also had to throw OG Skyrim in here, 1080p medium settings, and initially going into this, I was sure we'd be able to run this at 1080p high given the age of the game, but unfortunately we were in the mid-50s at high settings. Now you could definitely do a medium-high mix with this game, but at 1080 medium, I'm seeing some decent performance, and it doesn't look bad. These older games are actually going to do pretty well on the Z1 APU. Left 4 Dead 2 can run at 1080p high, same thing with Half-Life 2 or Portal 2. Here's Grand Theft Auto 5, 1080p, normal settings. I got an average of 81 FPS. So yeah, I mean, we are over that 60 mark. And to keep power consumption down, turning VSync on and just locking it at 60, you could have a really smooth game with GTA 5 on the Z1 chip. I also ran the built-in benchmark for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. With this, we're at low settings, 900p. We only averaged 55 FPS. Now, I'm sure at 720, it would go on up, but I wanted to see what we could do at 900p. Kind of the same here with Cyberpunk 2077, the final game we're going to be taking a look at. So here it is at 900p low with FSR set to performance. I only got an average of around 47 FPS. It's definitely not horrible like some other lower end APUs, but it would be nice to be able to run this at 900p 1080. In order to get this up to 60 or even over 60, you will have to drop the resolution down to 720p. And at 720p, we can get an average of 65 FPS. Now, it's really great to see it running this well, but we are at 720p. It'd be really nice to be able to take that resolution up. So obviously, this is performing much better than a lot of the other mini PCs in the market using older APUs. I mean, we've got Zen 4 cores here, RDNA 3 graphics. It's not on par with something like the Z1 Extreme or even the Ryzen 7 7840U APU with that 780M iGPU. But overall, this could be a great low-cost option for people who are looking to get into these mini PCs. As you saw, yeah, I mean, it can play AAA games. And one thing that the Z1 does really shine at is emulation. If you're interested in seeing a video like that, let me know in the comments below. But I think the main deciding factor here is going to be the price. Now, they didn't say what kind of price point they were coming out with the Z1 and the Z1 Extreme at. So let us know in the comments below what a good price point would be for something like this. Now, I've got my own idea. I think $299 for the Z1, maybe a little more for the Z1 Extreme. Of course, it'd be awesome to hit the market at $99, but that's just not going to happen. We kind of got to be realistic about it. But let me know in the comments below if this is something you'd be interested in, and at what price point would you want to pick one of these up at. So I will have another video coming up. Definitely stay tuned to the channel. It'd be really cool if you could hit that like button or think about subscribing so you know when I post the next one. But that's going to wrap it up for this video, and let me know if there's anything else you want to see running on this mini PC. But like always, thanks for watching.